Hey, I'm Dan Black, and welcome to episode 19 of our Eagles Nesting series throughout the lockdown, while we're all staying at home to stay safe, control the virus, protect the NHS, and save lives. Tonight's guest, I've been really wanting to get on the show, and it is an incredible game of basketball that we are going to see all about it. We've been talking a little bit during this lockdown and keeping in touch, but this is now finally the season. It's great to have got to it when he's an Eagle and not playing for a team that's hundreds of miles away and sticks with us for quite a few from this point as well. So I want to welcome Drew Lasker. Hi, Drew.
What's up, Dan? Thanks for having me. For this special occasion, I would have cleaned up for you, but I think you understand.
Well, that's exactly why I'm wearing a hat, because I'm desperate for a haircut like most of the country, and I just really don't trust those clippers I've got in the bathroom, and what a mess I would make of that. This has been an incredibly difficult time. Before we talk basketball, how are you? How have you been keeping busy since the BBL postponement, and how are you coping in lockdown?
Yeah, well, for me, on day one, it was just like everything happened so abruptly because obviously the March 15th, we were on such a big high, winning the trophy. And then the next day, the quarantine had began. The lockdown hadn't started, but the quarantine began. And I remember just kind of like laying on my sofa and kind of feeling like dejected and just didn't know what to do. And then I kind of decided at that moment, that evening, that I was like, okay, I can kind of see where this is going. Like this could go two ways, like either really be bad or you could turn this into a huge positive. So from that point, I decided, okay, I'm going to make the most of this time that I don't have. So I started some Facebook Live free camps. And then from there, just started kind of transitioning into some train harder camps. And that's what's been keeping me busy and keeping me going during this time.
It must be nice to have more time around family as well, and to see the girls a lot more through this time. Although
Absolutely.
You must be missing a basketball court. I guess you don't probably have one in the backyard.
No, I don't have one. It's funny because both of my neighbors on each side of me have a basket, and I just look at it, and sometimes I'm like so tempted to shoot at it. But in my backyard, I don't actually have a basketball goal. So
it just occurred to me when I was getting ready to bring you on to do this chat for the episode tonight that this is actually both of our first seasons with the Eagles. I mean, I wasn't wearing quite as brightly colored trainers, probably more like Converse for me, but this was a start of what's now been a long run with the Eagles for you.
Yeah, 2013 is the year that I began this stint with the Newcastle Eagles, and I got to give a lot of that to my wife Aisha, because it was a huge decision, because I had just went back to Plymouth the year before, and during that time I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to be finishing my career here. So I had my mindset that I was going to be there until my career finished. But things kind of changed after the season. I got a message from Dave Forrester, and that kind of turned into me asking the wife what she thinks about moving up north. And so yeah, we took a leap of faith, and we took a Ford Fiesta and drove it all the way from Plymouth all the way up to Newcastle, and we've been here ever since.
You mentioned Dave Forrester, actually, as we talked to Dave in the last Nesting episode, and kind of what we were talking about a little bit there was how after the season before, it was no silverware season for the club. We did do a certain amount of rebuilding. In this season, we end up runners up in the cup, as we'll talk about a second. Later in the season, runners up also in the playoffs. We get the league title in this campaign. But for you coming in, you were part of that new blood that we kind of brought in after realizing things weren't quite right the season before. So, we had yourself come in, we had Paul Gores come back from the season before that. We had Malik coming up on an episode soon, actually. So he came in this season, Malik Cook. There was a lot of new blood coming in. And did that kind of help it for you coming to be a part of this club and making that transition from other clubs to be a part of the Eagles this season?
Yeah, I felt like, because beforehand, if you think about, obviously everyone who's followed this, you see all the success that the Eagles had in previous years, but the timing couldn't be even better for me because obviously Newcastle came off a year where they hadn't won anything. So, for me to have an opportunity to be a part of turning this thing back and getting them back on track to where we belong was very enticing. And also, you talk about the transition of the club. It was a transition for me as well because I was 30 and I was just beginning the back nine of my career. So I was trying to figure out what type of player I was going to be during this later half of my years because my game had changed. So but I was thrilled to be part of it, and I feel like looking back on it, I feel like that year kind of set the table of everything that's to come that that everyone is enjoying now.
It's been great to see some photos and some bits of you. Thank you again, by the way, for taking part in the Pass the Basketball, Not the Virus video that I was just looking at again on our website earlier. It was great to have you on that. There was also a photo in the article we did about our photographer Dave Moore, where I think you've got your hand in Fab's face or something.
Yeah.
What was it like coming into the club and making that transition between playing against us to playing for us? Old foes now friends situation.
Yeah, it was for me. Like I had always had my eye on Newcastle, just like in the back of my, because I always wanted to be part of a winner. Like before then, my whole career, I had always been personally, individually an underdog, and I had always been on teams that was known as an underdog. When you think about Plymouth just coming into the BBL, not having high expectations. So for me, I always had that question in the back of my head of could I compete at a level when you're the top dog? Because for those that understand, it's different. It's different when you play for a team that has no expectations as opposed to playing for a team that if you don't win anything, it's known as a failure. So I always wanted that because, as a competitor, you want to see if you can live up to that pressure. So, I had always had an eye on Newcastle. I didn't think it would ever happen. I just always would wonder, man, I wonder if I ever had the opportunity, would I be able to live up to the bill?
And you won silverware with Plymouth, and I think that coming to the Eagles off the back of that season, I have the T-shirt, the sample of the new 25 T-shirt that with the new emblem just behind me there. One of these trophies and many of them from this point onwards are finals and league seasons and titles that you won with the club. But this game that we're playing about tonight comes straight off the back of, it's the first time we play Leicester Riders after losing to them in that 2014 BBL Cup final. It was a real tough loss. How did it feel in that final, in that cup final, losing that game because it was your first chance to win silverware as an Eagle? And
yeah,
how did that game feel? How did that affect you?
it was awful. It still hurt. Leicester has been floating it around all their social media accounts the last couple of days. That game in particular, being up by 11 or 14, however much we were up. I think it was 11 with like 3 minutes and 50 seconds to go. And to just totally just blow the lead and to lose in that fashion, like seeing that on social media just reminded me of how much that hurt. And coming out of that, in that game, I didn't feel like I didn't have an impact at all. I had 2 points, and not that my game is predicated on scoring, but my game is predicated on having an impact, and I had 0 impact. And so that makes it even worse, So I had actually a meeting the very next day with Fab and Dave Forrester. Anybody that knows that's played for Fab, you don't want to be in the office. Most of the time that meeting in the office isn't good. So I had a meeting with them the next day. Obviously, they were disappointed in my play. And it was a 2-hour meeting, and I left that meeting with Fab saying, either you're going to be here for the next 3 months or you're going to be here for the next 10 years. So, for me at that point, being 30 years old, 31 at that time, it was like my career is pretty much on the line. So, that was a turning point for me. And from that moment on, I was just like, I've been playing this game a long time. And and it was tough anyway. Like, I was really struggling that year, just trying to mesh with Fab, with the player coach, and then what the expectations he had from me, because I was playing point guard. I've never was a point guard coming up, and that's a tough transition from going to a shooting guard to a point guard. So I had all these struggles that I was going with. And at that point, I was like, okay, if I go out, then I'm going to go out the way that I've been playing basketball my whole life and what's got me here. And so I made that conscious decision in my head, and the rest is history.
I think you said that, that was a really, really tough loss, and the fallout from that. The game that we're showing in tonight's episode is the bounce back from that. It's the first time I think that we actually beat the Riders in about 5 times of playing them. And the game that we're going to play is it's a home game. It's a league game, but it's a great game for you guys and the team to really pull back some momentum against the Riders and settle that score a little bit.
Yeah, that was a huge, huge game for us. Basically, it's one of those games as an athlete, it's like, okay, we really get to see what you're made of. Yeah, you lost. You pretty much gave up the game. It was embarrassing. And how do you bounce back? And that says a lot about your character. And a lot of people kind of watch that and kind of get to see what you're really about. So that was a really important game for our team. Not only just for that, it was a time where there was a power struggle between Leicester Riders and Eagles, and Leicester Riders was trying to, get on top of that mountain, which they had beat the Eagles in a couple of finals. But, the Eagles, us and the organization was at a point where we weren't ready to let go of that. So, you're dealing with that. And then on top of that, the league was really tight. So we still had an opportunity to win the league. And so that game was important just for that reason, to make sure that, we stayed on top and we gave ourselves a chance at the end to lift up the biggest trophy that the BBL has to offer, and that's the league title.
I think there's a clip from this game which I think shows how important it was and how much you were fighting in this game, and obviously trying to show that that you personally as well wanted to win and wanted to go that extra mile. It's something which I think I might have seen you post a photo of on your social media, but I've managed to grab a clip.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. I mean, on the fast break, you were like, I'm going for this. It's like your feet almost didn't touch the ground for a second. And certainly when you launched into the air, that must have felt good as a player, as I'm sure that every point does when you sink it. But that in the second, I think that Riders in the game, whilst I won't spoil the score at the end, the Riders in the game, I think, were leading by 8 in the first. You with the guys and a fast break like that, swing it back in our favor before the halftime break.
Yeah, that was a statement play. There's always, over the course of the game, it's nip and tuck. There's always that 1 or 2 play that's a statement, and that was a statement for me personally, just because, again, I was hitting the back 9 of my career. My body was changing. I was struggling a little bit that year with some injuries, so I wasn't really taking a lot of risk when it came to my athleticism. And I mean, if you see that play, like, I just take off, and that's a play that, if you're worried about your health, you won't make that type of play. But again, because I was so mad from the finals, I was just like, forget it. Whatever happens, like, is going to happen. Like Malik Cook, who was my teammate that year, he used to always say, it's going to be what it's going to be. So, at that point, I was like, whatever happens, I'll swing on the rim, I fall and hurt myself. But a statement needs to be made that that game was just an aberration, and we're here to stay on top.
There's a bunch more games we've got coming up to show from this season. We've got some of your teammates coming up in future episodes. Scott Martin, hopefully gonna join us in a couple of episodes' time, and the guys that were in that season, many of which came back the following season when, of course, then we pulled off another clean sweep. It really was the start of something in this season, wasn't it? It was like a new momentum, a new reinvigoration around the club after that Silver Whaler season.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a turning point as well as far as like how our rosters are constructed, because at that time we only had 9. And I don't think since then we've had anything less than 10. And obviously to train, you need 10 players. So I remember that year, Brian McCarter used to train with us a lot. He wasn't even part of our team. He used to just come along just to help us out. So it was a transition for the club of getting like professional when it comes to like the number of players you need to have on a roster, because, you got to take injuries into consideration. And over the course of the season, one thing that's been evident that I've heard everyone that's on here, they used to always say that training has been more difficult than practice. Well, it's difficult if you're unable to go 5-on-5, so we had 9 that year, and, so that was a transition for the club. And we also were really close, because all of us were new. My first year, Scott Martin's, Malik, I think Paul was coming back. It was Stu's first year. So all of us were new. We lived near each other. I used to pick up Malik and Paul and take them to practice every day because they didn't drive. And I also remember it was tough because we had just moved here and my wife didn't have any friends, and I threw a party for her at the house, and the whole team had came over. So I had a little house party and the whole team was there. So that just give you a little insight of how we were a nice little close-knit group that year.
I'll let you off for not sending an invite to me as well, by the way. That's fine. It's been so great to hear your stories. And I know with obviously many more Silverware seasons for us coming up over the coming episodes as we get right up to, of course, what we would have been celebrating, I think, on Friday night this week, what was set to be our end of season awards dinner. We would have been celebrating and showing off that BBL Trophy 2020 one more time, but we've got lots more games we want to chat over. So hopefully, and get you back sometime, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone that's out there, just, it's tough. Just like I said, just try to remain positive, try to keep yourself busy. Just try to come out of these times with a new skill. You got time that we always never say we have time for. So just try to make the most of a bad situation.
Awesome. Thanks, Drew. All the best to you, to Aisha and all the family, and I hope you're all well, and we look forward to hearing from you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, Dan.
So no spoilers on the score for this one for fans wanting to watch it with all the excitement that this game is going to have. It is a close one all the way to the wire. We go back to Friday, the 31st of January, 2014. We're at home at Sports Central against the Leicester Riders on the bounce back from that unfortunate 2014 BBL Cup loss. What a game you've got in store tonight. Enjoy this. Stay alert, stay at home if you can to control the virus, protect the NHS and social care, and save lives. Enjoy the game.
Reality time, and it is live here at Sports Central. We welcome BBL TV here covering the big game of the weekend here at Sports Central. And what a game we have. We welcome our visit on court, the Leicester Riders. Leading them out, Reddy Klein, Jay Kutenard. At 6, Mike Black. At 9, George Bellow. At 11, Leon Cole. At 13, Connor Washington. At 14, Jarrell O'Connell. At 15, He's also back and sits at 22. Paul Scott. He wears 44. Malik and wearing 20. This is the big one of the weekend. That's why BBL TV are here. That's Leicester go head to head with your Drew Lasker Newcastle Sports Central. Let's let them know who you're supporting loud and proud. Make some noise! First touch scores with the visitors. Sport Central winning some defense. It opens up for outside the arc. Your match watch this evening. Ball sponsor, Esther. Well, a travel call on your Esther Eagles. Sport Central, get behind your team. Make some noise. Let the men in black know who you're shouting for. Resting at the left touch. Eagles from the baseline coming down. Drew Lasker. Eagles on the side, 18-second shot clock. Still a family with the visitors early on period one. Start ball on the visitors. Foul ball.
Robbie. Yeah.
1-1.
In the lane, have another one. Could not call that.
Leicester steps in before they can. It's back to Leicester on the line.
Oh dear.
Downstairs, so that's the ball from the side. And it's a power 2 for 2. Johnson is back with you behind the basket. Wave them arms and make some noise. Loud and proud, make some noise. Keep the arms waving behind the basket. Louder and prouder. Make some noise.
Everybody clap your hands.
Goes out. Your match watching this evening from Columbia University. Your match ball transfer Roll check cheering on 6:23 for the visitors. excellent. Sportsmanlike goal. Puts money on the line with 2. And he goes sideline.
I don't think so. I don't think so. That was the goal. But there was something like that.
Goes short on 1. Goes short on 2. Your match sponsor this evening, Leicester University. Your match ball sponsor, Drew.
How to get fouled, surely? Go ahead.
Leicester 3. Jaws walks in from downtown. Left to pick up the loose one. Jaws comes inside with 2. Your match ball sponsor, Drew. Wow, pulls it down. Goal strategic. Gets fouled on the line with 2. Ryan Hassan checks back into the visitors, 140 to the end of period 1. But more importantly, Charles on the line with 2. Checks in on 102 remaining, period 1. Goes Dallas gets in. Another goal. This evening, now W University, your match ball sponsor, Drew. 10 minutes to our half-time buzzer. We got a ball game here this evening. That's Sports Central, going live on BBL TV worldwide. Barriers, hit goal. Smith brings it down. It's in there. Scott gets fouled on the rebound. We're on the line. Win 2. From the ring on one. Goes for 2. It's down to 5. Great hands go. Charles gets a hand on it. We're on a 2-point ball game. Your match ball this evening, North University. Your match ball sponsor, Drew. Leicester took it down. Nowhere to go. Goal pulls up. Robson Lamble gets a rebound. Calvin Washington check back in on 8:29. It's a 2-point ball game. The visitors by 2. Your BBL starting action is live here at Sports Central and going live on the BBL TV worldwide. Your match sponsor, North University. Your match ball sponsor, Drew. Southside side, who's the hell final? St. Aloysius versus St. B. Here at half-time with Sports Central. Nowhere to go, Leicester. Mike gets a hand. And Drew Lasker. Campbell comes in. Martin back into the action. Tie ball game for 27. Darius Robson doesn't drop for 24 game block. Your match sponsor, Northampton University. Your match ball, Drew. We're back where we started. Friday night BBL action here at Sports Central, and it's live. Get that ball out of here. Back in, wing back, 3-3 half-time buzzer. And then we've got the Southampton Who's to Help Grand Final 2014. Saying our wishes and saying B, go head to head. Checks back in, 2:45 remains. Eagles ball from the baseline to the game clock. what a pass inside. Here he goes. 5-1. Leicester respond with 2. It's the visitors by 1. 1:30 approaches to the half-time buzzer. St. Aloysius, defending champions, take on St. B. Right inside our 60 of the first half. Here at Sports Central, your Friday night BBL action, and it's live.
You're right.
Goal. 2014 St. Aloysius versus St. B. Here at Sports Central, where you need BBL action, and it's live on BBL TV, going worldwide from Sports Central. Seconds remaining. The gap is 4. It's Rich Warnoy. That's true. That's to his blind fan.
Control will be taking part in our 30-second shootout has just taken place. Pink ticket, that's pink ticket 763 and 783. Pink ticket 763 and 783. Please make your way to the south entrance of the arena.
By Charles. Your match sponsor this evening, our W University, your match ball sponsor, Drew. Big rebound reload. This goes to work in the paint. Gets it down in the paint. We're going to go to the line with 2.
That's about time. We're definitely about time. He's sucked. Surprised Neil hasn't spotted it.
teammates. This is your Friday night BBL action going live here from Sports Central. We have a foul inside the Eagles paint. This is third, so it's with you, Sports Central. If you're behind that basket, wave those arms, but the rest of us, loud and proud, make some noise! Let's get them arms waving behind the basket, the rest of us, loud and proud, make some noise! BBL Friday action is going live on BBL TV worldwide from Central. Pictures first personal. We'll put Leicester on the line. We're two, if you're behind that basket, get them arms waving. The rest of us, loud and proud, make some noise! Let's get all those arms waving. Sports Central, louder, prouder, make some noise! That's responding to Penguin 2. Lasker. Lasker gets a foul on the paint. We're on the line with 2.
I think that's probably because they didn't put one beforehand.
pitches second. Got the National pitch to King now on the technical. The personal towards the evening brings back Scott Martin. Ramon Washington check back into the visitors. Poor course, the Eagles chips in. 5:56 remaining. Game time, PB3. Leicester with the ball on the side. Your action this evening supported by Northampton University and the S Group. BBL action live Friday night here at Sports Central, going live on BBL TV worldwide. Sports Central is behind that Eagles basket, get their arms waving. The rest of us, loud and proud, make some noise! Convoys behind the basket, get their arms waving. Loud and proud, make some noise! 5:25 on the game clock. 5 advantage with your Eagles. Pick your pocket goal. Outside for 3. It's back at 4. With your Eagles, and here they come. Florida goes forward, breaks the ring. Back comes Washington.
There's one for flopping. Oh dear. Oh dear. what's going on.
Lasker back at the action on 4 minutes. Drew Lasker. We're inside 4 minutes, period 3 remaining. It's BBL Friday night action here at Sports Central. Tonight we go live on BBL TV worldwide. And it's a picture personal, for the visitors. 3:15 remains, period 3. Lasker goes with 2, it's back in 3. He goes for timeout. Referee indicates it's a Leicester ball. From back into action on 1:52, period 3. The lines are now over. Eagles Facebook page. Have your say. Cast your vote. Who is your game MVP? Nowhere to go. Take that ball back to Leicester. 24. Nowhere to go. That's the pain, the time, all day. Oh, way to go! Washington! Apart from into the crowd, it's still a tie ball game. action here at Sports Central. Whistle goes. Puts Darius on the line with 2. This evening, Leicester University, your matchball sponsor, Drew. Don't forget phones lines are open. The Newcastle Eagles Facebook page. Have your say. Cast your vote. Who is your game MVP here at Sports Central this evening? Lasker ushering. Nowhere to go, Leicester. It's loose, it comes away with the visitors. Nowhere to go, Lambo! Take that back to Leicester.
Once again, congratulations to the winner of our Sports World Record tonight, winning a signed the Eagles basketball yellow ticket 278. Yellow ticket 278, please make your way to the south entrance.
Charles puts his second person on 7:20. Leicester at a tie pouring. Your match sponsor this evening, not from the University. Your match ball sponsor, Drew. There's only a 2.
In the Darius?
Charles wants it.
Right, a ball. Good call, yeah.
Checking back now in the action on 6:46. Paul goes! Also Scotland in reaction. 6:46 on the game clock. Your match sponsor this evening, Northampton University. Your match ball sponsor, Drew. Great hand scores!
Oh, Neil almost gave it away. Almost.
With the visitors from Eagles baseline, 6 minutes just over. Great man scores. Five, game clock. 2-point advantage with the visitors. Sports Central, make some noise. Goes, pulls the trigger. What a rebound. Malik Cook. Scott Martin. Charles has it on a spin move. It's a tip-in.
Goaltend. Not in the BBL. Calm yourselves down, people. No goaltend. Calm down.
Great hands from Fab. Lucas the goaltender, Leicester end.
It's not goaltend, Alex.
Lambert goes nowhere. The arrow throws the single ball. 12 second shot clock. Washington checks back in. Charles coming down from the side. 12 seconds. Drop off. Charles pulls the trigger.
Eagles going to need a bomb goal.
Great hands. It's loose. He was on it.
Eagles haven't scored for. Yeah, woo, that didn't count.
You're on 2, 1 point. this evening of the University. And our mascot sponsor, Drew. Big rebound. Make some noise for Central. Goals for Steele. Loud and proud. Make some noise. For Central, make some noise. Here come your Eagles. Loud and proud, make some noise!
There's a nod. No, there's a bit of goaltending there somewhere.